VCY America Daily for programming that will change your life forever.
VCY America is on the air. KBCX Gregory, WVIW Bridgeport. Online at vcyamerica.org.
History was made on today's date. Stay tuned for an American Minute with Bill Federer.
Susan B. Anthony, whose face is on the U.S. dollar coin, died this day, March 13, 1906. She was raised in a Quaker home, known properly as the Society of Friends, and was taught that individuals could have a personal relationship with God and that violence and slavery were wrong. The self-reliance instilled in her upbringing aided Susan in her crusade against slavery and alcohol and to give women the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony was arrested for voting in the 1872 presidential election and fined. Finally, in 1920, all women in America were given the right to vote.
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Thank you for joining us on Crosstalk. It's a Friday news roundup and comment program here today. We're so glad you've joined us. Every day here this week, covering many, many important issues. Our thanks to Sandy for so many stories here that she's prepared for us today. And we've got Cheryl on the phones today, and also thankful for Dennis in the control room and our team here at VCY America. Friends, as we share a number of stories, it's like this world is in great turmoil, and sometimes it causes us angst in our own lives, and to be upset and to have our hearts and minds bothered. I'd just like to begin our program today with a verse of Scripture from Psalm 46, verse 1, that is important that we repeat over and over again in our own minds to keep our perspective proper. It says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And friends, when the circumstances of life, when all the situations in the world seem very overwhelming to you, just remember it is God who is our refuge and our strength. With that in mind, we're going to cover a lot of world events today. We're going to begin with what's happening with Iran, the Middle East, and cover numerous other issues on the broadcast here today as well. But sadly, the news came out of 6 American soldiers that were killed. The U.S. military, I'm looking right now at Newsmax.com, the U.S. military says a KC-135 refueling aircraft supporting operations against Iran crashed in western Iraq, killing all 6 of its crew members. U.S. Central Command said the crash followed an unspecified incident involving 2 aircraft in friendly airspace and that the other plane landed safely. U.S. Central Command confirmed Friday that all 6 of the crew members on board the crashed plane have been confirmed dead and that the rescue efforts are continuing. He said that the circumstances of the crash are under investigation, but that the loss of the aircraft was not due to hostile or friendly fire. More information will be forthcoming. From JNS.org, the Iranian Supreme Leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, on yesterday, published his first written statement since assuming office on March 8th, vowing to avenge the blood of the martyrs, including his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Tehran's revenge is not limited to the martyrdom of the great leaders of the revolution alone, the Supreme Leader wrote in his remarks, which were read on state TV and posted to X. No public sighting of him, though, we understand to this point. Also from Just the News, Mujtaba told the Gulf Arab states to shut down U.S. bases amid the war with his country. These countries must clarify their position regarding those who have attacked our beloved homeland and killed members of our people. He said, I recommend that they shut down those bases as soon as possible because by now they must have realized that the United States' claims of providing security and peace have been nothing more than a lie, Khamenei said. He also addressed the Strait of Hormuz closure, saying the lever of closing the Strait of Hormuz must certainly continue to be used as well. Studies have also been conducted on opening other fronts in which the enemy has little experience and would be highly vulnerable. Their activation will take place if the wartime situation continues and in accordance with the considerations of expediency. In addition, he vowed revenge for Iranians killed in the U.S. and Israeli strikes. From worthy news, Iran launched a new wave of drone and missile attacks on Gulf countries yesterday. That was yesterday marking the 13th day of the U.S.-Israel war against Tehran. And strikes were reported in Bahrain and other states. Authorities in Bahrain reported that fuel tanks were struck after incoming drones and missiles targeted the island nation. This is a nation that hosts the U.S. Navy's United States Fifth Fleet. In Saudi Arabia, the Defense Ministry and Air Defense has intercepted drones that were heading toward the Sheba oil field, as well as other diplomatic district as well. Officials said at least 7 drones were intercepted. Also from worthy news, Israel intensified its campaign against Iran yesterday, striking a nuclear weapons development facility near Tehran. The Israeli Air Force hit the Talagan nuclear weapons development compound at Parchin, southeast of Tehran, which Israeli officials say was used for advanced explosives testing tied to Iran's AMAD nuclear weapons project. The site had previously been damaged in October 24, but was reportedly being rebuilt. From the Epoch Times, U.S. military said on March 12th that it had destroyed more than 30 Iranian mine-laying vessels, struck more than 6,000 targets since the campaign against Iran started last month. Aside from the more than 30 mine layers, the U.S. military has destroyed 60 Iranian naval vessels, CENTCOM said in a post on X. Reuters reporting that explosive-laden Iranian boats appear to have attacked two fuel tankers in Iraqi waters, setting them ablaze and killing one crew member on Wednesday of this week after projectiles struck 4 vessels in Gulf waters and said port maritime security and risk firms. Iraq's oil ports have completely stopped operations following the assaults. The Jewish Insider reporting that Israel continued extensive strikes on Lebanon yesterday morning after Hezbollah shot about 200 projectiles at northern Israel the night before. So about 120 of the rockets and missiles crossed from Lebanon into Israel during the Wednesday night barrage, while those not intercepted mostly striking Israel's north. Thursday morning, the IDF reportedly launched some 200 munitions from air and sea at 70 Hezbollah targets in Beirut. JNS.org, Mohammed Baghdad Ghalibaf, who is Speaker of Iran's parliament on Thursday, threatened to make the Persian Gulf run with the blood of invaders if the U.S. military targets regime assets on islands there. Homeland or death. Any aggression against soil of Iranian islands will shatter all restraint, he tweeted. The blood of American soldiers is Trump's personal responsibility, he said. Jihad Watch reporting now that the IDF has destroyed 75% of Iran's missile launchers, roughly 415 units. The Americans, together with the Israelis, have destroyed so many of Iran's ballistic missiles, while hundreds of others have been used up by the Iranians in attacks on Israel, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Jordan, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. The Iranians have decided that they will husband their remaining supply of ballistic missiles, believed by the Israelis to number about 2,500, and only launch those that have very large warheads and weigh at least 1 ton. The Jerusalem Post reporting that the data center of Iran's state-run bank was hit by a strike in Tehran Wednesday, the Jerusalem Post had learned. The disruption at the bank, which is largely responsible for paying the salaries of Iran's military and the IRGC, is expected to prevent it from paying salaries for a period, forcing it to find alternative solutions. Epoch Times reporting President Trump said on March 11th that his administration knows the location of most Iranian sleeper cells in the United States. That's an interesting statement. When asked about reports of an internal government bulletin warning of an Iranian cell in California and a question regarding how many sleeper cells are in the United States at the moment, the president said, "We know where most of them are, and we've got our eye on all of them, adding that a lot of people come in through the border policies from the previous administration. Many would be wondering that if you know who they are, where they are, what are we doing to be preemptive in that situation? Breitbart, the ABC News report about warnings that Iran could possibly launch drones against the West Coast. Well, they're saying it's fake news. That's from Carolyn Leavitt from the White House press secretary position. Her statement on social media came after the outlet said the FBI had warned law enforcement in California that the Middle East country wanted to retaliate for the U.S.-Israeli joint attacks by launching drones. ABC News called it an alert it reviewed, but Leavitt said the post and story should be immediately retracted because the outlet provided false information to intentionally alarm the American people. Coming to us from Fox News, a new Clemson University report found dozens of social media accounts associated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps pushing anti-Israel and anti-U.S. content to sow online discord during the ongoing war. According to a report released Wednesday, at least 62 accounts across X, Blue Sky, and Instagram were found to have connections, right to the IRGC, despite claiming to be users from the Americas and England and Scotland or Ireland. But all the accounts systematically amplify politically divisive content and disinformation that's aligned with the IRGC narratives, the report said. A very coordinated, inauthentic social media campaign targeting online discourse around the war between Israel, the U.S., and Iran. Let's see here. We have from Fox News Digital, U.S. Central Command said today that the Iranian regime has been the number one threat to peace and stability in the Middle East for years. We've attacked over 6,000 targets, and our strike package continues to launch every hour, and we've maintained an unprecedented number of sorties up over ahead of Iran. That was a statement from Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane. He said CENTCOM is now persistently over the enemy. Newsmax telling us that the International Energy Agency agreed Wednesday to release the largest volume of emergency oil reserves in its history in a bid to counter the effects of energy products, or energy markets, that is, of the war in the Middle East. The Paris-based organization said it will make 400 million barrels, releasing that barrels of oil available from its members' emergency reserves. And Epoch Times telling us that the Trump administration tapping into strategic reserves, announcing 172 million barrels of oil will be released beginning next week. We understand also that as Operation Epic Fury is raging, that U.S.-Israeli forces are picking apart the Iranian regime, and the radio chatter between an Israeli pilot and an American one before a bombing was very complimentary. Here's a clip from Israeli pilot thanking and offering encouragement to his American counterparts before a bombing run took place.
No, for us to fight.
Tell you what, we're going to start that over again. Let me play that here.
Mobile 97. Go for 97. It is a great honor for us to fight with you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. Likewise, gentlemen. Please be safe out there. Strike hard. See ya.
Very interesting comments there. Strike hard. The complimentary comments taking place from Israeli pilot there. Also, interesting from California, the gas prices, everybody's talking about it, and yet they're lower than at some points in the Biden administration. But Secretary of Energy Doug Burgum responded to allegations made by California Governor Newsom, who blamed President Trump for the rising prices. Here's what he had to say.
You guys are responsible for the fact that his gas is over $7 a gallon. What do you say to him?
Well, wow, that is something coming from California because, of course, under Gavin Newsom, California used to have 40 refineries. Now they have 8. 2 more are closing. They're going to be down to 6 with Chevron and Valero closing. California is the most energy-dependent state in America. 63% of their oil gets imported. Now they're going to be importing refined product into San Francisco Bay and into Long Beach every day just to keep their fleet. They have the largest number of internal combustion cars in America in California, and more than any other state even has vehicles. And, of course, they've been trying to eliminate those and doing that, which then puts us dependent on China. Right. I mean, their energy policies are as crazy as Europe. And part of the reason why their prices are so high is they've restricted supply and killed their own economy.
Interesting indeed. And some are asking the question about those Iranian bombs that have been going off. Just what if they had had nuclear warheads? Something to think about. I'll tell you this, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Back in a minute.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, now we know there are volcanoes here on Earth, but are they found anywhere else in the solar system?
Chris, we find evidence of volcanism on all of the rocky planets and many of the moons. Our own moon gives evidence of much volcanism in times past. Recent studies of Mars show that huge volcanoes were there as well. On the moons of the gaseous planets, some may even still be active. It appears to me that much of this volcanism is associated with meteorite impact. I wouldn't be surprised that at the time of the flood, the whole solar system got bombarded by meteorites. Remember the big picture of creation thinking. A very good creation, perfect in every sense, ruined by the introduction of sin and the curse on all of creation, and then restructured by the flood of Noah's day. Often God used natural causes to bring about his supernatural intent. And that's the way I see it from a Back to Genesis perspective.
Thanks for joining us for Back to Genesis.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Thank you for tuning in. And friends, take time to thank the local station that provides you Crosstalk. Get behind them, support them financially. They provide the airtime for Crosstalk. We're so grateful for it, just to keep you informed on many, many critical issues. So we continue our news roundup and comment program here today. There have been assassination attempts against President Trump. And as just the news points out, while one of the plotters behind the Iranian intelligence-linked assassination attempt against Donald Trump has been convicted in U.S. federal court, another man now has been charged in a separate plot to assassinate the then candidate in 2024, believed to still be in hiding in Iran. The Justice Department have filed charges now against Afghan national Farhad Shakari and Pakistani national Asif Merchant found guilty by a Brooklyn jury last week. Shakari was charged in the Southern District of New York with murder for hire, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, money laundering, conspiracy, providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization, conspiring to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization, and conspiracy to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and sanctions against the government of Iran. Also, WND.com tells us a Florida woman who created TikTok videos urging MAGA supporters of Donald Trump to be shot on sight was convicted Tuesday in federal court. This is Desiree Doreen Sigari, 41 years old, of Sarasota, Florida, found guilty of interstate communication of a threat to injure after posting a disturbing video August 17th in which she put a mortal target on everyone who wants to make America great again. The Epoch Times reporting the U.S. Embassy in Quito, Ecuador, announced Wednesday the opening of the first FBI office in the country. Ecuadorian officials will work alongside the office in a move that strengthens diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Ecuador, and also fighting drug trafficking. The office will focus on a number of tasks with local officials as the Ecuadorian president also cracks down on organized crime during his administration. Really fighting against narco-terrorism. Western Journal reporting that Senate Majority Leader John Thune announced yesterday that he will be bringing the Save America Act to the floor for a vote next week. The legislation, which President Trump supports, requires Americans to show proof of citizenship, to register to vote in federal elections, and to present photo ID when voting, as well as places limits on mail-in voting, but makes it available for those who are disabled, those serving in the military, or those traveling out of their home state. The Senator Thune argued Thursday that there could be only two reasons why Democrats in Congress oppose the Save America Act. First, it may be that they just reflexively are against it because Republicans introduced it. Or, he continued, Democrats believe that they are, in fact, people out there voting illegally and that it's benefiting Democrats and they want to keep it going. Other provisions in the legislation include preventing males from competing in female sports and not allowing gender transition procedures to be performed on minors. Thune concluded, quote, I can't guarantee an outcome on this legislation, but I can guarantee that we are going to put Democrats on the record that they will be forced to defend their outrageous position on these issues and explain to the American people why common sense and the Democratic Party have parted ways. Polls have shown 83% of Americans want the Save America Act. They want that voter ID to be given. Now, there has been some interesting developments on this as well. The White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt Tuesday called out Democratic claims that the Save America Act would bar women who've changed their last names after marriage from voting. She calls it a huge myth. I'd like to just play a quick clip from her news conference this week.
My first question is actually about the Save America Act. So one of the biggest things that the Democrats are saying, the claims that they're making, is that the Save America Act, it would prevent married women from voting in elections or make it harder for them. What do you have to say to those claims? Is there any validity to them, and where do you think they're getting this from?
There is zero validity to these claims, and I'm glad that you brought them up, because you have the Democrats who have created this myth, and it has been perpetuated, unfortunately, by many in the mainstream media. Let me be very clear. The Save America Act does not prohibit anyone from voting with the exception of illegal aliens. And the greatest way to disenfranchise American citizens from voting in American elections is to allow illegal aliens to vote, which is what Democrats want to do. We see it taking place in Democrat jurisdictions at the state and local level across this country. So the Save America Act corrects that. And as far as married women who have changed their name, if they're already registered to vote, they're entirely unaffected by the SAVE Act. And for the small fraction of individuals who have changed their name or their address, they can still register to vote, of course. They just have to go through their state processes to update that documentation. And this is something that the American people, married women and minorities and people all across this country who Democrats are insultingly saying cannot do this, they're already doing it every day, going to the Social Security office, going to the DMV, and I think it's frankly insulting that the Democrats are saying that there are certain groups of people in this country who aren't smart enough to update their documentation to allow them to vote. Again, this is a huge myth, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address it.
And that is White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt as she dealt with the myth about the Save America Act. Fox News reporting that President Trump vowing to reject signing any new bills into law until the Save America Act is passed by the Senate. Well, Florida's not waiting. Daily Signal reporting that the Florida Senate passed voter ID legislation yesterday, sending the bill to Governor DeSantis. This is a bill to strengthen the verification process for voter citizenship status, passed the Florida Senate 27 to 12. The bill passed the House 83 to 21 last month. Prior to this vote, Governor DeSantis announced in a social media post that he would sign this bill into law. Let's go up to Michigan from JNS.org. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security identified the suspect accused of driving a car into Temple, Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan, and shooting at security guards as Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, who was born in Lebanon, entered the United States on May 10, 2011. As the husband of a U.S. citizen, he obtained an immigrant visa and became a U.S. citizen in 2016, the department said. CBS News reported that he lost relatives in an airstrike in Lebanon 10 days prior. In addition to the head of security at the temple, who was hospitalized when the gunman hit him with a car that he drove into the Reform Synagogue, 30 police officers taken to the hospital due to smoke inhalation from a resulting fire. The suspect killed following a shootout with the guards. Also, Daily Caller reporting that the person who was killed after opening fire at Old Dominion University, identified as Mohammed Jalla, a former National Guardsman who was convicted of supporting the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, that's ISIS, in 2017. Media reports had indicated police confirmed that one person had died, 2 others were wounded in the shooting. Pamela Geller at the Geller Report quotes Reuters here. Norwegian police said Wednesday that they had apprehended 3 brothers suspected of carrying out Sunday's bombings at a U.S. embassy in Oslo. It's an attack investigators have branded as an act of terrorism. The powerful early morning blast from an improvised explosive device, IED, damaged the entrance to the embassy's consular section, but caused no injuries, Norwegian authorities have said. The 3 suspects are in their 20s. Norwegian citizens with a family background from Iraq, police have said. From FoxNews.com, the U.S. consulate in Toronto was struck by gunfire early Tuesday morning, what authorities are calling a national security incident. The Epoch Times, the Senate on March 12th failed to advance legislation to fund the Department of Homeland Security, extending the agency's partial shutdown into its 27th day. The procedural vote was 51-46. That's short of the 60 votes required to overcome a filibuster. Lawmakers also failed to move the legislation forward during a previous vote on February 24th. Major DHS enforcement components include the Customs and Border Protection and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, remain unaffected. They're fully funded for the next few years, so many are scratching their head. Why the shutdown? ICE is funded, the Border Patrol is funded, but other parts of the department are being impacted by this lapse of funding. We're talking about FEMA. We're talking about the Coast Guard. We're talking about the TSA. Although roughly 96% of the federal government has received funding, DHS has remained partially shut down since February 13th. And you think about the importance of these agencies, like the Coast Guard and FEMA, taking place, and people are very upset about long waits that they're having at the airports as well to get through security there. But CNN's Scott Jennings did what he does best, giving a passionate reasoning why DHS needs funding restored. Here's what he had to say on CNN.
But does anyone here believe that we should keep the Department of Homeland Security, that's the name of it, indefinitely shut down to try to force ICE policy changes on an agency that's already funded until 2029, when you acknowledge there are sleeper cells, when we all see radical Islamic terrorists throwing IEDs in New York City, when we saw a radical Muslim terrorist shoot up a bar in Austin, when we had tornadoes in Oklahoma and Michigan this weekend, when we have TSA lines of 5 hours in airports, we have all these things going on. Is it even remotely reasonable?
And the discussion went on from there. But wow, what a statement there, as he really brings to light what's going on with the shutdown of the government, partial shutdown here of funding of DHS. Again, this does not affect ICE at all. They're fully funded. It does not affect Customs and Border Enforcement. It is these other agencies that are being impacted. Worthy Christian News reporting an international law enforcement operation has led to the arrest of 60 suspects and the rescue of 65 child victims following a year-long investigation across Central America, North America, and the Caribbean. The effort, known as Operation Eclipse, ran from February of 25 to January of 26, targeted networks involved in producing and distributing child sexual abuse material. Authorities said most victims between the ages of 5 and 13, with about 80% identified as girls. From Fox News, a federal appeals court Wednesday granted the Trump administration's request to pause a lower court order that had blocked it from deporting illegal immigrants to so-called third countries. That's granting a near-term reprieve to the administration just hours before the lower court's order was slated to take effect. Slay News reporting a 50-year-old illegal alien who was ordered deported more than 2 decades ago has been charged with fraudulently voting after allegedly casting ballots in multiple federal elections while falsely claiming to be a U.S. citizen. This is the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania announced the charges, stating that he had allegedly unlawfully voted in person in the 24 general election for federal office and falsely represented he was a U.S. citizen to vote and to register to vote. Investigators found he was illegally voting for Democrats. He faces up to 5 years in prison. From the Western Journal, the illegal immigrant who was convicted of killing Laken Riley has lost his bid for a new trial. Jose Ibarra, a Venezuelan man who had a police record even before he killed Riley in February of 24 while she was running on the Athens campus of the University of Georgia, had been sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. On Monday, the Clark County Superior Court judge, this would be H. Patrick Haggard, threw out the request for a new trial, saying the evidence against him was overwhelming and powerful, that according to CBS News. And from Yahoo.com, the U.S. Coast Guard made the largest drug seizure at sea in 18 years, capturing 22,052 pounds of cocaine worth over $250 million. We'll be back in just 1 minute. You're listening to a News Roundup program here on Crosstalk on the VCY America Network.
Proverbs 21 verse 1 says,
"The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will."
just as God worked through the kings in Israel, so he also works through the leaders of human government in countries around the world, including the U.S. In the book, Presidents, Politics, and Prophecy, author Richard Schmidt has transcribed and expanded intriguing lectures from Dr. Jimmy DeYoung Sr. You'll see how God has worked through world powers in the past to accomplish his plan and purpose for today and the future. With a review of each of the U.S. presidents from Jimmy Carter to Donald Trump, you'll find key initiatives that have prepared the world for things to come. VCY has made available Presidents, Politics, and Prophecy for a donation of $18. Call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, and friends, here we go again. What are you talking about, Jim? Well, No Kings 3 Day. Yeah. Matter of fact, the Freedom from Religion Foundation put out a release saying that they are once again proud to co-sponsor the next No Kings National Day of Action taking place on Saturday, March 28th. They boast that there are 2,200 No Kings Day events planned in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and a dozen other countries. The flagship gathering will take place, guess where? Right in the Twin Cities. WesternJournal.com reporting that the Alabama House Republicans advanced a new measure meant to deter church disruptions with substantial prison sentences and fines. The legislation comes weeks after left-wing activists invaded a church in St. Paul, Minnesota, over one of the pastor's work with ICE. The bill would charge those who interrupt religious services in Alabama up to 10 years in prison, fines up to $15,000 or more. That's according to a report from the Alabama Reflector. If it did pass the Alabama House on Tuesday with a vote of 75 to 27. WNG.org, U.S. Representative Kevin Kiley of California said during a Monday virtual press conference that he has asked the House clerk to change his party registration from Republican to Independent immediately. He announced last week that he would run for re-election in California with no party affiliation, but Monday's announcement will move him out of the party earlier than anticipated. Troubling release coming to us from, through Jihad Watch. The UK Boy Scouts now are offering a badge for Islamophobia Awareness Month. In the UK, the Boy Scouts, there's not a badge for Christians, a Christian badge or a Sikh badge or a Jewish badge or a Hindu badge, but now an Islam badge, yes, for Islamophobia Awareness Month. Jewish Insider reporting that Columbia's University anti-Israel protest leader Mahmoud Khalil is scheduled to speak at this week's annual South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas. At Columbia, Khalil was a key organizer of the anti-Israel encampment in April of 24, a two-week demonstration in the center of campus during Israel's war in Gaza. The demonstration included several incidents of assault on Jewish students. Protesters used threatening and anti-Semitic slogans, including "Go back to Poland," signs with the Hamas symbol and the words "I'm with them," and chants calling for Hamas attacks on Tel Aviv. Now, there was no such demonstration on campus when October 7th happened, when all these Israelis were killed. But when Israel goes to defend itself and to mete out her vengeance, that's when the protesters took to action. The Daily Caller reporting tax hikes that Socialist Democratic New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani campaigned on appear poised to come to fruition despite Democratic New York Governor Kathy Hochul's vow not to raise taxes. The Democratic-dominated New York State Assembly on Monday night released a budget proposal including corporate tax increases and an income tax increase for wealthy. Mamdani has called for increasing both New York's corporate tax and placing a 2% tax on New York City's highest earners to pay for his various proposed expensive social programs like fast and free buses, city-run grocery stores, and taxpayer-subsidized child care. Final budget will require the approval of the governor. New York consistently ranks among the highest tax states in the nation, even without those proposed increases taken into consideration. And the feeling a pinch over in Washington. The Blaze reporting that a movement in Washington state to pass a new tax on millionaires may have persuaded billionaire Howard Schultz to abandon his decades-long residence in Seattle. He's lived in Seattle for 4 decades, headed the Starbucks Corporation as it grew into a global brand. On Tuesday, he posted an announcement on LinkedIn that he was leaving Seattle and heading to Florida. He did not cite any new tax proposal, but was aimed straight at wealthy individuals like him. The millionaire tax would strip another 10% of personal earnings over $1 million on top of the state's already heavy tax burden. The State House already passed the tax proposal, and it's expected to pass the Senate in Washington as well. From WND.com, an Illinois school district honored a biological male identifying as a female in celebration of Women's History Month. That happened yesterday. The Batavia Public School District 101 honored Democratic Representative Sarah McBride of Delaware, who claims to be a transgender woman, in a since-deleted Thursday Facebook post. McBride was involved in controversy over which restroom would be used after being first elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2024. But really? School district honoring a biological male congressman for Women's History Month? The Blaze is also reporting that Florida officials say that 2 high school girls laughed and joked with each other after they were arrested for allegedly plotting the murder of a fellow classmate. Isabella Valdez, 15 years old, Lois Lippert, age 14, were unaware that they were being recorded as they discussed their plans on the back of a police vehicle in January. That's according to the Almonte Springs Police Department. They also discussed the blood pact about Lanza and whether someone ratted on them. Court documents indicated that Valdez identifies as transgender, goes by the name Jimmy. Valdez was questioned by an assistant principal and admitted that Valdez was plotting to kill another student. When asked how it was to be done, it allegedly said that had a knife and gloves and trash bags and wipes in the backpack. And when that backpack was handed over, those items were indeed found inside, and allegedly said that voices were heard saying to kill the victim. Daily Signal telling us a medical watchdog is calling out on the Food and Drug Administration to investigate companies that allow Americans to purchase sex-rejecting drugs without a prescription in pursuit of transgender identity. Do No Harm released the report titled The Lack of Barriers to Minors Ordering Cross-Sex Hormones Online Tuesday, highlights certain websites that may enable minors to obtain estrogen and testosterone from online pharmacies and other sources that do not appear to require prescriptions or age verification. From LifeSiteNews.com, from March 2 to March 5th, we just passed those days, major UK adoption agencies sponsored LGBTQ plus adoption and fostering week, spearheaded by the LGBT group New Family Social. The chosen theme was Now is the Time, urging more homosexuals to adopt children. LifeSiteNews.com also reporting Idaho Republican lawmakers took a strong stand against homosexual marriage, voting to reject the Supreme Court's Obergefell v. Hodges ruling as an illegitimate overreach and to urge the court to overturn it. WNG.org, a federal appeals court affirmed this week that West Virginia is not required to cover transgender procedures under Medicaid. A 3-judge panel issued an order on Tuesday reversing a lower court's ruling. Let's see, from LifeSiteNews.com, Ukraine's Supreme Court has legally recognized a homosexual marriage between a Ukrainian diplomat to Israel and his partner as a family. The court ruled that a party whose obligations or rights are not directly affected by the verdict cannot challenge the decision, therefore uphold the lower court's rulings. This coming from the capital of Pierce, South Dakota, Pierre, LifeSiteNews.com, the South Dakota Supreme Court this week unanimously affirmed a lower court's ruling that individuals who identify as transgender do not have the right to have the sex or name on their birth certificates changed to reflect their current gender identity. It was published March 5th. South Dakota's High Court affirmed the Sixth Judicial Circuit Court's previous ruling that citizens cannot alter the sex or name written on their birth certificate unless an error was made at the time of birth. Okay, from the Western Journal, we also have Los Angeles County Superior Court quietly disclosed that nearly 500,000 criminal cases dating back to 1965 were not properly reported to the state due to a technical error. According to an FAQ page on California Attorney General Rob Bonta's website, they recently identified a backlog of over 464,000 criminal cases that went unreported between 1965 and 2023. As a result, individuals arrested in Los Angeles County may not have their dismissals or convictions currently reflected in their criminal records, blaming this on outdated technology for not having those records. A victory for Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. This is from Alliance Defending Freedom. The Moody Bible Institute of Chicago, they are a private Christian college, had challenged the Chicago Board of Education for discriminating against the school's hiring practices by rejecting Moody students from participating in the city's student teaching program because Moody hires like-minded individuals who agree with Moody's statement of faith. Well, 4 months after filing a religious discrimination lawsuit on behalf of the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago, Alliance Defending Freedom attorneys reached a favorable settlement with the Chicago Board of Education, and as part of that settlement, they've modified their teacher internship agreement, and now they have listed Moody as an approved university partner on its website. Dr. Tim Sisk, Moody Provost, said, "We are deeply grateful that a resolution has been reached reaffirming our constitutional right to hire individuals who are aligned with our core mission and our biblical values." Okay, lifenews.com. Abortion-free New Mexico is commending investigative reporting by the New Mexico Sentinel after the outlet published an undercover video report showing how a New Mexico abortion clinic allegedly assists Texas residents, including minors, in circumventing Texas abortion restrictions. The report documents conversation in which clinic staff appear to explain how Texas patients can travel to New Mexico to obtain abortions that would be illegal in their home state. And according to the undercover footage published by the New Mexico Sentinel, a worker at Valley Abortion Group in Albuquerque described the clinic's policy regarding late-term abortions. Quote, "We go up to 34 weeks, so technically there is almost no deadline." That supposedly said by the Valley Abortion Group worker to an undercover recording that was obtained by the New Mexico Sentinel. LifeSiteNews.com, the Office of South Dakota Attorney General Marty Jackley announced Monday that it has secured a settlement for the New York-based Mayday Health to remove its abortion pill advertisements that it had placed around the state. Mayday Health targeted women and young girls, encouraging them to take abortion pills while misleading them about the physical risk, Jackley declared. "My position has been clear and unwavering. South Dakota law governs, and the misleading advertisements must be and are stopped." Let's see. From the Western Journal, the Supreme Court said on February 23rd that it will consider a complaint from oil and gas companies over lawsuits that is trying to blame them for climate change. At issue is whether federal law precludes state law claims seeking relief for injuries alleging caused by the effects of interstate and international greenhouse gas emissions or on the global climate, according to the website. The case has implications for whether this court has statutory and Article 3 jurisdiction to hear the case, referring to the part of the U.S. Constitution that establishes the federal judicial branch. President Trump this week hailed a brand new Texas refinery as the first new U.S. plant in nearly 50 years, Fox Business reports, and saying that America is returning to real energy dominance. And also reported here from the Daily Mail that scientists have revealed a controversial plan to launch 50,000 mirrors into space to offer sunlight on demand. California-based startup Reflect Orbital is poised to secure permission to launch 60-foot prototype mirror into space, into orbit, to beam sunlight back to the Earth's surface. Once it's reached an altitude of 400 miles, the mirror will unfurl and illuminate a patch of Earth about 3 miles wide. Someone looking up from the ground would see a small dot of light above as bright as the moon. Reflect Orbital says its space mirrors could allow solar power plants to operate 24 hours a day and to provide lighting for disaster-struck regions, even to replace streetlights. Very interesting indeed. Well, friends, we're up against a break. Let's open our phone lines if you'd like to comment on these or other current event stories. Our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. 1-800-733-9829. Back in a minute. This is Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Worldviewtube.com. Iran, they have a few advantages on their side, 3 of them in this war. Eschatology, their end-time beliefs, their topography, the mountains that help act as a natural fortress for Iran, and then they have their geography. They have the Strait of Hormuz and another very important strait from which we have a lot of energy and trade going through. So we need to be very sober about what's happening in the Middle East with Israel and America going against Iran. We certainly hope that we see great success by Israel and America. But Americans need to understand that this is really a worldview war. Just take, for instance, the eschatology. The Shiites believe in a 12th imam, their savior, their Messiah, that will come through what? Chaos and jihad. So again, it all comes down, at the end of the day, once again, to a spiritual battle and worldview. I'm Brandon House.
It's the News Roundup and Comment Day here on Crosstalk, and if you'd like to comment on these or other current event stories, the number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Let's go to Daryl in Delaware. Daryl, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. Just a comment / question on the No King's Day. Wasn't it true that God did not want Israel to have a king?
Yes.
So why not let them know that they're following God's order to not have a king?
Okay. Well, what they're doing is seeking to set up a king, declare that Donald Trump is a king and cannot have kings in that regard. But
right.
It's a,
I don't know, just sort of being a little facetious, but hey, thanks for following God's orders here, you know?
Yeah. Interesting comeback. Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, and indeed, God wanted them to look to him, not to set up an earthly king over them. Let's see. Our number, 800-733-9829. Let's go to Burlington. And Linda, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I just wanted to let people be aware, especially in Wisconsin, that we have a patriot down in the southern part here his name is Harry Waite, and he had proven that the myvotewisconsin.gov website had a flaw that allowed anybody to order a ballot for anybody else, from anyone else, and have it delivered to himself. And he did not do this with any malice, but he returned all of the ballots he received unopened, and the Wisconsin DOJ is trying to persecute him for voter fraud. And he did nothing wrong because there was no other way for him to get the WEC's attention to the matter. And he is going on trial starting March 23rd in Racine County, at the Justice Department there. And I just want everyone to know to be praying for Harry and the trial, because the judge is trying to disallow any of his evidence that would exonerate him. Okay. We just went to the pretrial hearing yesterday, and this judge, Daniel Johnson from Walworth County, was making it clear that he would not allow any evidence that would lead to Harry's intent for doing such a thing. So we're really upset because there were no victims in this. It was purely a whistleblower event.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Thanks for making listeners aware. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that was Linda from Burlington. And again, the number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. 9829 today for Crosstalk to comment on all the stories we presented or other current event stories. We know there's much going on. I see often the stack of things that are behind us that we didn't get covered on the program as well. By the way, Santa Fe, New Mexico, as you are listening in, Liberty Counsel put this out yesterday. They filed a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights against Santa Fe Public Schools on behalf of parents who withdrew their daughter from school after district policies normalized sexual misconduct from a gender-confused male student. The complaint states that these policies allowing students to identify as a different gender and access opposite-sex facilities amounts to sex discrimination against females and violates Title IX student civil rights and parental constitutional rights. Be praying for Liberty Counsel as they pursue this. This is in the Santa Fe Public Schools. We have Nancy calling next from Texas. Hi, Nancy. You're on the air.
Yes, Jim. I tried to get on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm in a car.
Yep. Go ahead.
With your guest from New York with the pregnancy center, I just wonder, is this abortion pill is making its way into the Islamic community? And then how much influence will Islam in New York City have over getting rid of an abortion pill? And I don't know, I'm just interested in that. Does anybody see the contrast between Islam not allowing the pill and here we're eating it up?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've not seen any study on that particular aspect of it, but indeed Islam seeks to build their numbers in order to have influence over a community and to increase their strength by numbers. So it's a very interesting question you pose there, Nancy. Thank you for the call. Mm-hmm. We've got Chris calling next from Hawthorne. Hi, Chris. You're on the air.
Hi, thanks. In regard to the Iran war, President Trump has to go in there and eliminate the current government, period. Otherwise, they're not going to stop no matter how many weapons they destroy. So that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And indeed, there is great determination on the part of the Ayatollah now, the son of the deceased now, Ayatollah Khomeini, and still not having shown himself in public. There has been speculation from the administration, the Trump administration, that he was injured, perhaps maimed, as a result, or disfigured as a result of the bombings that took place early in this campaign. Let's go next to Alice in Arkansas. Hi, Alice, you're on the air.
Well, thanks so much for taking my call. I loved what you said at the beginning of the program. And my heart wants to say that the Bible said, if our heart condemn us not, then have we confidence toward God. Jesus has given us a warning that they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in Revelation, that you left your first love. I'm saying this to say this. We need a revival in America so that we don't get the surprise attack like they did in Jericho. And the only hope there, they were behind a scarlet cord, which represents the precious blood of Jesus. God truly help us.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Alice. And with that, we're going to have to close. We don't have time for any more calls here today, but saw an article in the Washington Stand about America's religious identity continues to evolve and really going the wrong way from 2% to 24%, the rise of religious nuns, N-O-N-E-S, no religion here in the United States is been on the rise, and it has been troubling to see that aspect. It used to be just a couple of percent, now up in the 21 to 22% range. Friends, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And as we close today, I just want to remind you of that verse from the book of Psalm, chapter 46, verse 1. Troubled world, make sure you take time and pray for this administration. Be praying for peace and for finality here in the conflict that's taking place in the Middle East, and pray that God would be glorified. By the way, the Lord's Day is coming. Trust you'll be in a Bible-believing, Bible-preaching church this Lord's Day.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.